SLICKS FM. Welcome back to 102.9 SLICKS FM. I am your host, Lewis, and I'm joined once again by Dave, the Racing Line Ellis. Dave, how are we?
I'm good. How are you? How are you post-move?
Post-move, getting there, a little bit tired. Manual labour and DIY is not my strong point, so it's been a bit of a trial by fire and a few broken things, but we're getting there.
You're a bit tired and now you've got to deal with my stupid questions. That's good prep for my stupidity.
Yeah, so I'm really in a good mental state to be doing a seminar on MotoGP because this is our third installment of the thickos series, and we're talking about MotoGP. So we're delving into two-wheeled motorsport. How much do you know about it, Dave?
I know that the vehicles have two wheels and that
Good.
riders are on the machine that these two wheels are situated. That's
Yes.
generally the end
Good.
of my MotoGP knowledge, so prepare for some really, really stupid questions.
That's fine. I mean, to start off, Dave, what is a bike?
You see, my definition of a bike involves pedals that go round and the human powers it. But I'm guessing that MotoGP ones are a little bit different from that.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't have pedals.
so it's kind of like my first question, actually. I'm I look at motorsport in kind of different ways, like with cars. Like, so Formula One is kind of unrelated to road cars completely. GT racing is kind of related. Le Mans prototypes are kind of related ish. Touring cars are very related. How does MotoGP actually, the machines, relate to road bikes? Are they related at all? Are they the same manufacturers? Are they the same models? Is there any technology blend over them? Like, what is that compared to a road bike?
So they are conceptual bikes that you can't go into a shop and buy them. That's where the super bikes come into play. They are customer bikes with improved brakes and tires, and they've removed the lights and mirrors, and pretty much a super bike you could go into a shop and buy. But MotoGP is the equivalent of Formula One. It's conceptual. Is that the word I'm looking for? Conceptual
Because it's a prototype, I suppose, isn't it? It's
prototype. Yeah,
kind of like Le Mans prototypes.
yeah. So it does kind of pave the way for what will end up in consumer bikes, but it's at the very, very extreme end of things. You know, with aerodynamics and technology that affects the ride height of the bike and things like that. So there's a lot that we'll never probably see in road bikes.
So with other manufacturer teams, for example, like Mercedes kind of thing for bikes, and do they sell those bikes to other MotoGP teams?
So it's similar in the sense of there are factory teams. So you have factory Ducati, you have factory Yamaha, factory Honda, factory KTM, and factory Aprilia. I believe I have got everyone there. And then the factory teams also have customer teams which run their bikes, their chassis, but often it's the previous year's spec. So
Okay.
the top teams will have the 2026 bike for this year. So Ducati, for example, the factory team has the 2026 bike, and then some riders, depending on contracts and performance in other teams, will have a similarly spec'd bike, but most of the grid that are on a Ducati will be on a previous year spec. So basically, the bike that won the championship last year will then be used for the independent teams and things like that. So it's still a competitive bike, but obviously, as all the other teams improve year on year, they're always sort of a year behind.
It's kind of like what you see in sports car racing then, where you can have a factory Mercedes team, but then they sell those AMG GT3s to privateer teams, and often the factory team's a little bit ahead then. I take it it's all one class, even if you've got an older bike, you're still in, there's no like class structure like LMP1, LMP2. It's literally just MotoGP, like F1, no class.
Yeah, that's it. It's changed a lot throughout the years. Even if we go back just 10, 15 years ago, there would be 22, 24 riders on the grid, but there'd maybe be six that would be classed as CRT, which was basically uh, customer bikes that were a lot closer to what you could buy off the shelf than a concept bike. They were basically a souped up super bike, but to the nines with brand new chassis and everything like that. But now it's just a case of there are five constructors, and each constructor might have two or three teams, one factory team, and then one or two independent teams that they provide engines, chassis, aerodynamics, things like that for.
Actually, you mentioned the grid size there. What is a typical grid size? Because, like, if you go to F1, you've obviously got between 20 and 24, depending on how many Aston Martins managed to start a race and finish a race. And then over at Le Mans, you've got like 60 cars. NASCAR's got 43. IndyCar's got around 20 to 30. So what's a MotoGP grid size look like?
At the moment, it's 22, same as current F1, but it has fluctuated. There was a quite a bleak period, sort of early 2010s. If you watch any race replays, there's 15, 16 bikes. Just the demand or the interest to be in the series wasn't there, and it was dominated. It was dominated by Japanese manufacturers, which has now sort of swung the other direction, and it's now European manufacturers that are sort of dominating. In your sort of Rossi era and your early Marc Marquez era, who were the two sort of modern goats, if you like, they were Yamahas and Hondas, and now it's completely swung when the Yamahas and Hondas are arguably the worst bikes on the grid. So it really does ebb and flow, a bit like Formula One, in terms of a team can be at the top of the game and then drop to, sixth, seventh, eighth best on the grid.
I was looking at the calendar, since that's what I do anyway.
You
And
do tend to look at a few calendars.
I do tend to look at a few calendars, and I'm always surprised how long the season is actually. It seemed to get up to about 20 events long before F1 was there, or is this a more recent thing, or has it always been a long calendar?
It's always been maybe 16, 18 rounds. That's typically what I remember it being. But what they now have, which some people like, some people don't, is every single race weekend, of which there are 22 this year, there is a sprint race and a feature race. So they are racing 44 times,
Well, that's a lot, and
which is a lot.
the weekend structure kinda confuses me a little bit actually because, obviously I do their calendars. It doesn't mean that I understand the timetable that I'm getting, but I do translate it exactly. And you've got something like free practice 1, and then
Mm.
practice, and then
hmm
free practice 2. What's this random practice in there? Does that set is that like a qualifying thing or what?
Practice sets the who goes into Q1 and who goes into Q2. So there isn't a
Right.
Q3 like in F1. It's basically the grid is split in half. Um, and what happens is the bottom half of the grid go in Q1, and the fastest two riders promote to Q2, and then they can challenge for pole position with the top half of the grid.
Okay. Okay.
So similar-ish, where at like Q1, six are knocked out, Q2 six are knocked out. Basically, it's similar to that, but the two fastest in Q1 get promoted to Q2, and then they can still fight for pole. So it's not uncommon. Say if you had a really bad practice and you crashed and you didn't get a lap time in, you could go through Q1 and then end up on pole position. Sort of m- make it hard for yourself, but it is possible.
Yeah. And how does the grid for the sprint work then? Because the grid's set on the sprint's on the Saturday before, isn't it? And then the race is on the Sunday generally.
Yeah, so qualification sets it's the same grid for both races.
Oh, really? So qualifying
Yeah.
just
So
translates into both races.
regardless of sprint result, it's like well, it's not actually. It's unlike Formula One, which has a sprint quali and a regular quali. This is just one quali session for both races. So Saturday is quali and sprint, and then Sunday is the feature race.
So like, you've got a main race and a sprint race. You've got qualifying. There's 3 practice sessions. But unusually for most race series as well, Moto 2 and Moto 3 are at every single race as well. which is pretty stacked for the support series. So, like, it appears to be, as a fan, this would be a great weekend to attend if you like bikes because you've got guaranteed MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, and I think the rookies one does a handful of races in Europe as well. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
these weekends are completely stacked. Unlike, for example, I think it was the Canadian Grand Prix, you end up with F1 and I think it's Ferrari Challenge North America that goes there, and that's kind of it. It's like trackside, it must be pretty, I wouldn't say hectic, but like you're getting your money's worth trackside.
Yeah, and it's also cheaper than F1. So if you like two wheels, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. So yeah, there's Moto 3, Moto 2, and MotoGP every week. There's occasionally Red Bull rookies, and there's also Moto E, which is their attempt at an all electric series. They do a World Cup, which is fewer races scattered, selected events. I think it's maybe 8 of the 22 rounds. There's a Moto E, and that's basically full of former Grand Prix riders that aren't really competitive, on the top machinery anymore, and they found some good success doing these concept sort of electric bikes. Um,
I
so
think Moto E might be on a hiatus this year because I was looking for its calendar and I found something saying that it's not back for 2026. I'm presuming it
yeah,
will return in
maybe if
2027.
for the 12 fans, it might come back for them, but I don't think it was particularly popular
I think
or
that's
very successful in the sense of the bikes would at most last, maybe 10 laps.
it's kind of the problem with electric racing, isn't it? And I say this as a Formula E fan of it is quite
Mm,
different. And if you go and you want to watch MotoGP, you might not necessarily want to watch Moto E. It's kind of a different vibe, and it's not a wrong vibe at all, but it is very different, I imagine. Similar
very
to
different.
Formula E versus Formula One. If you go to a Formula One race, you probably don't want Formula E as a support race. It's not really fitting
No,
very
it's not
well.
what you're there for.
No.
People aren't attending for the Formula E, for the Moto E, I imagine.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the start, like these bikes are basically prototype bikes. So I says I'll Google them and actually see a modern photo. Wow, there's a lot of aerodynamics hanging
There's a
off
lot
this.
going on.
It's like I'm looking at one. I've got a purple number 89 bike. No
Yeah,
idea who it
Aprilia.
is. Is
That's
it?
Jorge Martin.
Okay, I'll take your word for that. There's a lot going on this bike. There is a huge amount of
Although if it's purple, it's definitely Jorge Martin with the number 89, but it might be his Ducati from a couple of years ago.
it
Is it
has.
Pramac?
Yeah,
Yeah, Ducati.
so it's got a huge amount of vents on the front, and it
Hmm.
almost looks like those vents that you get on like an Audi down in the corners where the fog lights are. So presumably that's how aerodynamic is, and it looks like it's got fins on the rear as well, poking
Yes.
up of I guess what the wheel arch is. I I've never really seen this amount of aerodynamics on a bike. Like the last time I really looked at a MotoGP bike was kind of the Rossi years, and they've changed dramatically in that time.
Hugely. And it's been led very heavily by Italian manufacturers. And it's kind of become the de facto approach to add winglets and aerodynamics to the like really extreme aerodynamics to the front of the bike. If you look at um, the Ducati from 2018, depending on what race you were at, the front would be quite smooth, unrounded, or incredibly angular and sort of thin with these huge wings poking out either side. Um, so race to race, the bikes could look very different. I
What's
guess
your
it's
opinion
similar
on
to.
that?
I mean, in reality, what it's done is made the racing more spread out because it's creating a lot of turbulence behind the rider. It's similar to Formula One, where when there was less of this downforce, the bikes could race more closely. And, at the end of the day, it is the prototype series. So I'm all for seeing, you know, developments like this. But so, for example, ride height devices, which again was brought in by Ducati, as Ducati 2010, 11, 12 was not a very competitive bike. It went from being competitive in the noughties with Loris Capirossi and Casey Stoner, and then it sort of dropped off. And lower teams were then given concessions to allow themselves to bringing themselves up to the standard of the front runners, the Hondas, the Yamahas, things like that. So they were allowed more engines, they were allowed more testing time, they were allowed lots more movement on, parc ferme rules and things like that. And what it brought in was things like electronic aids, which is where the ride height device came in, which is basically where the bike will squat at the rear and the front. And on race starts, the rear completely compresses so when the energy from launching isn't just getting wasted by compressing the rear because it's already compressed. So it makes for absolutely rocket ship launches. But with things like ride height devices, there's also, races being ruined because ride height devices get stuck or break. There's been occasions where bikes have been stuck with the rear compressed and it won't come back up, and that's that race done. And it happens, like you say, it's a prototype series, but the last few years, MotoGP and rally used to be my thing, and for the last 5 or 6 years, MotoGP has sort of dropped off for me, and I don't know if it's the regulations or there's just something that's not clicking like it used to.
Yeah, I could feel that. But we'll probably get onto that kind of point more when we do a WRC episode, because I'm the same. It doesn't click with me as much as I used to. But I've got an image up here of 2011 versus 2025 aerodynamics in MotoGP, and the difference is just remarkable.
They used to
Um,
look like bikes, whereas now there's so much going on.
it's like an alien almost.
Yeah,
There's just a
it is.
lot of stuff. I wouldn't say hanging
Stuff.
off of it, but there's just so much going on.
I
And
mean, it's the danger element as well. If there's a crash, there's a lot more pointy, sharp, angular bits that could hit somebody.
yeah, especially when the rider is very exposed compared to a regular car. Um, it's just remarkable to actually look at and think that this actually works, because a bike is famously not a stable platform. So attaching aerodynamics to it kind of feels like, well, no, that won't work because there's a lot of movement going on. But that and rally is another one where you think, well, aerodynamics shouldn't work as effectively as they actually do, but the engineers appear to be smarter than physics almost. So, like, if this is having a negative effect on the racing, is there any discussion on reining back aerodynamics in order to improve the racing? Because although it's a prototype series, at the end of the day, if this stuff is never going to make it to a road bike and the racing is worse, what's the point in it existing?
Well, that's the thing, which brings us to 2027, which is um, a new set of regulations. It's similar to F1's 2026. It's a big regulation change where we're going to 850cc engines. So we're getting smaller, similar to F1. We're getting the ride height devices are banned completely, and aerodynamics are being reduced. So all of the concessions and rankings. So all these manufacturers used to be ranked on points, and if you earn a certain amount of points, you would be stripped of extra concessions because you were deemed to be performing well enough. So it's a complete blank slate. Everyone's been given the same treatment and the same allowances. But yeah, next year is set to be equivalent to this year with F1. And they're going to Pirelli. They've been with Michelin exclusively for about 10 years. They used to be Bridgestone. In the past, they've sort of mixed and matched between the two. But so they're going to Pirelli, ditching Michelin. And then, funnily enough, the Superbike Championship, World Superbike, is then going to Michelin. So they're almost swapping tyre suppliers. So yeah, next year will be a big change and a sort of a blank slate for everybody. Maybe we'll make closer racing, maybe won't. We will see. But this is kind of the equivalent of 2025, where all these bikes are at the absolute peak of this era, like the F1 cars were last year, and then it's started again.
So if MotoGP is sitting in kind of the F1 slash hypercar LMP1 position, where do World Superbikes sit in that? Are these road bikes that are heavily modified and racified? Like, can I go into a showroom and buy what is essentially a World Superbike for the road?
Yes, you could.
Nice. That
Yeah,
sounds like a dangerous thing to me.
yeah, and a lot of them are even decaled to look like the superbikes that you see on the telly. Yeah, which
So
is
I can
even.
go. Is there a big technological difference between them, or is it essentially the same bike? Like, I'm presuming it comes with road tires, whereas the World Superbike is running on slicks. I'm presuming that race fuel is more potent than what I'm getting down at Tesco. So, like, what are the actual differences then, or are they basically the same?
They get bigger brakes, front and rear, improved suspension, race tires, as you say.
Hmm.
They lose, you know, wing mirrors, indicators, lights. A lot of the time they have stickers in place of them, so it looks like they still have the lights. A bit like Lightning McQueen, you know,
Oh, like NASCAR.
like NASCAR. Yeah, they lose the number plate holder at the rear and things like that. But, it's like 85% road bike in superbikes.
So,
So
without wanting
it's
to do the fan thing of create a hierarchy, are we putting but we're going to create a hierarchy. Are we putting MotoGP kind of above World Superbikes in terms of like popularity and driver ability and things like that?
MotoGP is the pinnacle. It's where everyone wants to end up, or at least a lot of riders want to end up. This year, Toprak Razgatlioglu has joined MotoGP as a rookie, but he's a three-time World Superbike champion.
Mhm.
So he was at the top of his game in World Superbike, and he would have kept winning, but now he's moved to MotoGP as a rookie on arguably an uncompetitive bike to see how he fares against who are meant to be the pinnacle of racing. But it's the same as F1. Just because it's the top class doesn't mean they're the best drivers in the world or best riders. You know, Marc Marquez is one of the best riders in the world, but there are probably better riders in World Superbike. Toprak has now, as I say, is now joined MotoGP, probably as close to Mark in raw talent as anyone will get, but he's not going to get the wins and the results because of the bike.
I'm looking at the World Superbike Wikipedia at the moment, and I'm seeing that there's a term here, Super Sport. Is that essentially a feeder series to Superbike that's below Superbikes?
Yes, you've got super bikes, you've got super sport, you've got super stock, you've got all sorts of support. It's different, smaller engines, things
And
like
it,
that. So you've got, like a Yamaha R1 is, your top super bike. Then you've got R3s and R6s, and they're all sort of your smaller, less powerful bikes, but still
I'm noticing the
competitive.
World Superbike calendar is a lot more condensed as well. We've got 12 rounds, 3 races
Well,
per round again, but
yeah.
12.
So 12 rounds, but 3 races per round.
Yeah, so it's got R1, SR, and R2. So is SR sprint race again?
Sprint race.
Okay, so are
So
we
two
getting
feature race and a sprint every week.
it's kind of like verging on British touring car style where you've got multiple races in a day type thing because it looks like the sprint race is on the Sunday and then the main event is on the Sunday as well, or race 2 is on the Sunday as well. Or it's probably closer to Aussie supercars actually rather than British Touring Car Championship. And this looks like it's doing, again, I don't mean to create hierarchies here, but this looks like it's doing circuits that are kind of below MotoGP level. MotoGP is spending a lot of time on grade 1 circuits, what we consider Formula 1 and WEC circuits. Whereas I'm looking at superbikes and I'm seeing Assen, Balaton Park in Hungary,
Donington.
most, yeah, Donington, Motorland,
Yeah.
Oregon. Don't
Hmm.
tend to see these circuits in high-end P, I don't think. So it kind of does move superbikes down a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, there's a few, MotoGP used to race at Donington, now it's at Silverstone. MotoGP does go to Assen, and it's uh, one of their longest serving rounds. I think it's been on every calendar year apart from the pandemic years or something like that. So
Assen's
Assen
very
is
much a bike circuit as
it's
well,
a
isn't it?
bike track.
There are
Even the British Superbike Championship goes to Assen.
It's funny. It's a bike track in that the same way that Spa is a car track, because British GT goes to Spa because
Yeah,
everything goes to Spa, and
yeah, yeah,
Assen appears to
absolutely.
be almost the same equivalent for bikes.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, it's a pilgrimage when it's the British Superbike in Assen. It's just you've picked up, Donington and plonked it in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
it's just Brits everywhere,
We can argue
for
later if
better or
Brits.
worse.
Yeah, there you go.
Brits abroad.
That's
Yeah.
where I was going with that. We don't tend to do well when we're abroad.
No.
You touched on British superbikes there. Are they the same type of superbike, same class as world superbikes, or is it kind of a different spec? Or like, can I take a world superbike and basically enter it into British superbikes?
Yes, and vice versa. It's like, the national equivalent, really.
I quite like that because that's something we don't actually have in car racing, especially in the UK right now. When you got British
Mm.
Touring Car Championship, you cannot extract one of those and race it elsewhere. It's not legal elsewhere. And TCRs are a little bit funny as well because whilst there are licenses to run them and you can run them everywhere, it's like it's got to be specific places. So I quite like this idea of, oh, actually, I own a British superbike. I can also race it in the World Superbikes. It makes it more accessible almost.
And
Does
it's
that make
quite
sense?
common. It does make sense, and it's quite common for riders to wildcard in either series or, you know, switch series mid-season, and they basically pick up where they left off.
Uh,
World Superbike might have larger teams, and crew, and they might have more spare parts available to them and things like that. And but there are still factory teams in BSB that support, and the hospitality and the motorhomes are all legit and as big as they get. So it's still a major thing. It's just British circuits, and you get these tiny, twisty Mickey Mouse tracks like Cadwell and Alton, which just are amazing.
That
Um,
was what I was gonna come on to next, because when I did the British Superbikes, calendar for the racing line, I was a little bit shocked about, like, "Oh, this is kinda crazy circuits." It's like, why do they race on these other than, they're pretty awesome? But I'm just loading it up now. So Cadwell's one of them that you can take a car around it, and obviously people do on track days, but you can't really take a fast car around Cadwell. You're not gonna take the
no,
British Touring Car Championship there because it's kind of a ridiculous roller coaster of a circuit.
yeah, Cadwell's where you take your MX-5 to
Yeah.
stretch its legs.
But the one that I think is more scary to me, like Cadwell's a crazy circuit, but Thruxton. Thru
Mm,
Thruxton is just a really good way to kill yourself on a bike. Like, Thruxton's dangerous enough in a car in that, like, there's no such thing as a low speed accident at Thruxton.
Thruxton is so fast.
And the runoffs are all kind of like old runway concrete that hasn't been
Hmm.
touched since the 1940s.
It gives me
It's
Top
like,
Gear test track
yeah,
vibes. What look
like
watching Thruxton.
taking a bike around that must be utterly terrifying.
Oh, they're absolute lunatics for doing what they do. And then, we've not even touched on road racing. That might be an episode in itself. The Isle of Man.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is like, where does that fit into this whole thing? Because obviously it's another distinct, I was going to say championship. I don't, is Isle of Man actually part of a road racing championship, or is it a standalone event like the Nürburgring 24?
It's a standalone. So there are
Right.
road racing events. There's the Northwest 200 in Ireland. There's the Isle of Man TT. There's, all sorts of road racing events. There's one in Scarborough near me, actually, Oliver's Mount. But yeah, the Isle of Man TT is its own thing. They're super bikes, but they also, they have super sport, super stock. They have all the similar sort of um, tiers. But what's interesting with TT is you'll have the same riders entering multiple categories.
Really? So you could enter
So
super stock, super sport, and super
yeah,
bike all in one
yeah.
kind of weekend.
So what you'll have is so the winningest rider at the Isle of Man is Michael Dunlop, um, and he will enter the senior, which is super bikes, you know, the top class. But he'll also enter super sport, super stock. There's even, you know, super twin, which is kind of like sport bikes, and that you can enter multiple of these events. So you could walk away from the TT with, you know, 6 or 7 wins from a couple of weeks of racing if you enter
Yeah.
multiple classes. So that's not uncommon.
So although the TT is a standalone event, you mentioned the Northwest 200. Is that part of a championship, or are road races all just standalone events? And it's kind of a
As far as I'm
unofficial
aware, they're
grouping.
standalone. I don't actually know for certain, but I think they are just, you know, 1 or 2 week events standalone.
And I
And
presume that worldwide, anything or there are other superbike championships. We've got British superbikes, but there must be Italian superbike championship. That's
yeah,
bound to exist because the Italians
uh-huh.
love a bike race.
Australian, American, they're two quite big superbike championships that have their own sort of national, uh, you know, calendars and things like that. They still go to Laguna Seca, and they, you know, do some tracks that F1 obviously will never do Laguna Seca, but MotoGP used to Laguna. Um,
I
so
seen
yeah, there's national
the
series across the world.
I seen Moto America appears to be the kind of governing body for the American versions because I've put their calendar in the racing line
King
as
of the
well.
baggers.
That coming to that, but I noticed they don't race superbikes at Daytona, presumably because that's a stupid idea. But they do race super stock and the other ones. And then I got to adding King of the Baggers, and I was like, "What is this? Like this is very odd sounding." And then I googled it, and I
It's
had
very silly.
more questions than what I
It's very
started with.
silly. I don't
Are
know much about King of the Baggers other than it is quite silly and
are they
entertaining.
Harley Davidsons? That kind of
They
style
might
of
be. I
bike?
don't know, but they are that style. I don't know if they are Harleys, but they are these big, cumbersome, huge sort of tourer bikes. You know,
I didn't really understand it because it looked so incredibly impossible to take round a circuit. Like
they
I
just
always
don't look
can
like they turn very well, do they?
no, that I always consider like the idea of bike racing is they're very nimble. Like no matter
Mm,
like the big ones and the small ones, they've got difference in straight line speed and they've got difference in cornering speed, but they're always nimble. Whereas this thing, I don't know, it was like the bike equivalent of a tank in trying to
yeah,
take it around a circuit. I didn't really get it, but then I kind of remembered that in car racing, we do have the concept of
truck
truck racing.
racing. Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's kind of the equivalent of that, isn't it?
Yeah, we shouldn't really be racing trucks. Why are we doing that? But we kind of do, and it works.
And I know this isn't your area, so feel free to be like, no, we're not doing this. But I'm looking at Moto America and we've got super bikes, so that's what we've talked about. We've got super sport, that's what we've talked about. There's Twins Cup. Are they kind of road going bikes as well? Because you'd mentioned twins, I think at Isle of Man you mentioned that.
Yeah, super twin. Um, To be honest, I don't know what makes a super twin, but we're about to find out together.
Nice, okay. Bit of research online.
Yeah, I mean, it's brought up a Mercedes Benz Sprinter van. That's not what I want.
That's probably not it.
Um, okay. So a super twin, a category formerly the lightweight class. It's heavily modified 650cc twin cylinder production bikes. So they're about 100 horsepower. Um, yeah, so they're lower on power. So yeah, they're like it'd be super bikes, super sport, super stock, super twin in that order.
Okay. And there's one other than the Americans seem to have that I'd never heard of, which was Super Hooligan, which just makes it sound like they're in a council estate in Liverpool
I
somewhere.
don't know what that is. Super hooligan.
I I've I love the way
I
Americans
I can
name things.
imagine what it looks like. Okay, no, that surprised me. Moto America super hooligans. Yeah, but they're a bit like street bikes. Yeah,
They kind of are. It's
yeah,
kinda
like
cool looking.
like Triumph Bonnevilles and Scramblers and things like that.
Yeah. It kind of the American thing of they'll just race anything, won't they?
They will literally race anything.
Like, if it's
And
a
I ca
motor-propelled vehicle, somebody has already raced it.
Yeah.
What was
Well,
that
if
thing
their
of
grandmother had wheels, they'd race her, I think.
yeah, what's that thing is like, we first raced cars when somebody built the second car, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. There's so many branches to, bike racing, but fun fact is that the Grand Prix Championship for bikes, as we know it today, is actually a year older than Formula One. So
Really?
we've been
Um,
racing bikes on the Grand Prix level for a year longer than we've have racing cars.
and
1949.
does that come under, like, MotoGP? Is that what we consider Grand Prix for bikes?
So it used to be called 500cc until it was rebranded in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. So it was 500cc. So anyone in the 90s who today would be MotoGP world champion was a 500cc world champion.
Mhm.
And then so there was 500cc, there was 250, which is now Moto 2, and then there was 125, which is now Moto 3. So it used to just be named after the engine size, but and rebranded to what we know it is today.
Okay.
So yeah, it was like
And
F1,
there's
F2, F3, but in bikes.
and now there's one other kinda group of races or series that I need to ask about, and that is the Endurance World Championship, which is EWC compared to the car version of WEC. So this
Yes,
appears to be a group of 4 events. I'm presuming that there's a championship involved in that as well, and they're not actually just standalone events that are between 6 and 24 hours. Is that right?
as far as I'm aware, I think it is a championship, like a season thing, like WEC, um, and they do Le Mans. Um, where else do they do? Do they do Suzuka?
They do Le Mans, Paul Ricard, Suzuka, and Spa for the 8
Yes,
hours.
Spa.
S
Spa on superbikes is crazy, but
Suzuka must be crazy as well, actually.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, EWC, and what often happens is factory riders for those manufacturers will do EWC, and
Mhm.
it's a bit like the Triple Crown. You know, as a rider, you'd want to win. You'd want to be MotoGP world champion, but you'd also want to win. 24 hours of Le Mans with a factory bike. Um, so yeah, it's similar in that regard, where it's quite a coveted thing to do and be part of.
And I'm presuming that Le Mans, they use the Bugatti circuit. They surely
Yeah, they do.
cannot
Yeah,
be using right, okay, good.
yeah, they use the Bugatti circuit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine doing the
because
main circuit on a
MotoGP
bike.
races Le Mans, and that's the Bugatti circuit. They've been there for years.
Yeah, I think DTM did it for a little while as well. I
Mm.
think the main circuit is only reserved for the 24 hours of Le Mans and the Le Mans Classic. I don't think anything else gets to do it in the support races for those. So that's 4 individual events, and I'm just looking at the list here of, like, when the circuits joined because Suzuka appears to be a kinda staple of it. It first joined in 1980, cool. But after that, it's like Spa's a recent one. It's been in and out over years, but it looked like it really came back in 2022. So, like, they looks like they cycle circuits quite a lot in this.
It's it's a series I would like to follow more, which contextually is why I asked you a couple of years ago to add it to the app,
Mhm.
because I've always known of its existence, and it's always a bit of a spectacle, and I like endurance racing on 2 and 4 wheels. It's what some of my favorite stuff. Yeah, it's something that I want to, you know, follow more. They used to do it at Assen, which I think would be fabulous to watch. Endurance racing exists on 2 wheels as well as 4, and is equally as interesting. They've got these spotlights. So they're super bikes, but they have the lights left in, for when it gets dark and things like that.
I think the craziest thing about bike racing to me is it very much keeps itself to itself. It's quite interesting because I'm not that into bikes and didn't really think much of it and assumed that although like I know MotoGP exists and it's obviously very popular, didn't really think that much of it. And then I watched a British Superbike race on YouTube, and I've never seen so many fans at a British circuit.
Hmm.
Like,
It's
other than
proper
the f-
cult following.
other than Formula One, I can't think of an event that is going to be as packed as a British Superbike event. It probably outdoes the British Touring Car Championship in terms of number of fans at the circuit.
Do you
It'd
know?
be
I would agree.
crazy to look at.
I don't know what it is, but working class Brits love their bikes, especially when it's a bike that they could, in theory, buy. The car park, or the bike park, should I say, is just absolutely rammed for World Superbike, for British Superbike. It is huge.
So, do you think, on a kind of related note, is it worth me investing a little bit more time putting more bike series into the racing line? Like, I've got British Superbikes, I've got American Superbikes, I've got MotoGP, I've got World Superbikes. I don't tend to have the support series for these, but that probably sounds like a worthwhile thing adding, given the popularity of these series. It's just my own kind of lack of knowledge on it that I kind of thought, no, nobody will be interested in that. But I think I'm
Well, they
wrong.
are, yeah, they are popular. And, there's World Superbike has an all women's series now, similar to
Hmm.
F1 Academy. And they all use the same R6 Yamaha. And it's a stepping stone into super stock, super sport, and the end goal is World Superbike, and then across to MotoGP. Because MotoGP and World Superbike kind of run parallel. It's not, if you're in World Superbike, there is a view to be MotoGP, but your pathway is easier if you're already over on that train track, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
If you're in Moto 2, you're in and winning, you're in a better position to get a MotoGP ride than if you're in World Superbike and winning. It's just the more natural pathway.
I
It's
think
kind of like two closely matched pinnacles sort of simultaneously existing.
I think I'm gonna have to attend a British Superbike race at some point. The easy one there is Knockhill in June. That's
Knockhill's
that
great.
Knockhill's a ridiculous circuit anyway, so I'm like again, I'm looking at a video on the Knockhill website, and this is more packed than British Touring Cars is. And British Touring Cars is packed at Knockhill every time. I think I've completely missed the boat on bike racing and really should have leaned into this a little bit more because this is crazy popular, and it's crazy popular for a reason, so I should probably go and check it out.
Yeah, BSB is really good fun. And I think I'd watch BSB over World Superbike
Oh,
just because of the circuits.
so yeah, I was going to say this. So one of the things that I try and watch, for example, is World Touring Car Championship, or it's not a championship, World TCR Tour, I think it's called, which is quite cool. But I tend to find that the circuits are a little bit too big for the cars because we're on Formula One grade circuits on, I'm not going to say underpowered cars because they're not, but they're not Formula One cars. And then I watched British Touring Car Championship and they're at Thruxton and Knockhill. And it's just a lot more fun. Like, I
It
feel
is,
like the
it's just
cars suit it better.
frantic. Yeah.
And so, do you have that same opinion on World Superbikes versus British Superbikes? As circuits are maybe a little bit too big, so British Superbikes are at these smaller circuits, and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. I mean, Moto 3 races at Kota,
Mhm.
and they are just not powerful enough for that track. It's huge, it's wide, it's long, it's 2 minute plus laps, and put them at Cadwell or Alton Park, and it would look way more interesting. I mean, there are so many support races per BSB weekend. You know, small regional. You know, we're already at a national level. Then there's regional series running. There's sometimes sidecars which also run at the TT and things like that. There are so many layers. It's a bit like an onion.
I might do one of the days at Knockhill, actually. A single day at Knockhill is £31 for the Saturday. That seems quite reasonable, to be honest, for
And
a
on the
day out.
Saturday, you'll get the quali and you'll get a race.
Yeah, it says here that there's actually 4 races on the Saturday. You can actually go on the Friday. There's no races, but you can actually just get a Friday only pass for
Mm,
£16, which
it's
seems
good value.
very cheap to watch somebody throwing a superbike around Knockhill.
Yeah.
Although there is a
Yeah.
photo on the Knockhill website, and it is Knockhill, so I'm presuming it's superbikes, and there is a wing on the front of whatever this bike is. It's a Ducati something. It's definitely got wings sticking out the side.
So yeah, that's it's sort of homogenizing. So MotoGP have obviously put all the wings on, and then customers want their bikes to have wings. Whether they make any difference is up for debate, but you'll see superbikes have wings, and road bikes, top level road bikes will also have wings. Whether they're doing anything is up for debate, but they look as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, I'm looking at the attending championships list of this weekend, and it does have the British Sidecar Championship, and it's like that just looks crazy as well. You got a guy that's literally climbing over a machine.
Lean, yeah, just clambering.
Yeah, I might attend this actually. I've never considered
Do it.
myself a bike fan, but this seems like an easy way to actually get into it for the first time because it looks a bit crazy, and obviously the acceleration that these things do around Knock Hill. Well, lap time is
Ridiculous.
around Knock Hill. As good as a
For
British Superbike.
BSB, it's
Yeah,
probably not very long. I mean, it's the yeah, I'm gonna guess like a minute 10 or something like that.
right. Qualifying one, pole time was 47 seconds, which is
Yeah,
probably about the same as what British Touring Car Championship does it, if not quicker. Bikes around Knock Hill seem to be very, very close to cars, which is
and
very
what you
cool.
find is a MotoGP bike is faster than a Formula One car in a straight line for acceleration and for top speed.
Yeah,
It's in the corners. That's where the Formula One car makes up all the time because bikes have to slow down,
yeah.
have to brake earlier and take the corner slower, whereas an F1 car just sticks like glue, doesn't it?
And I imagine that's why the racing is considered so good in bikes as well. You get longer braking distances because you're not cornering anywhere near as quick. Longer braking distances is how a lot of overtakes happen, unless it's battery management, hence modern Formula One.
Yeah.
I think I'm sold
And
on this. I might go to Knock Hill.
there you go. I mean, the top speed in bikes is 225.9 miles an hour
It's terrifying.
on two wheels. But yeah,
It's,
you should get yourself to Knock Hill. And while
yeah,
we're on the topic of uh, records and stuff for MotoGP, how many we can test it if you want, or how many champions or riders do you know of that are currently circulating or have in the past?
basically none. I know, I know names from Isle of Man because we've all watched the Guy Martin documentary. So the name Dunlop and
John
the many,
McGuinness,
yeah, I know those names. I obviously know Valentino Rossi because everybody knows Valentino Rossi, and he's obviously doing sports car racing right now. There are names that if you rattled off, I'd be like, yeah, I've heard of them. So Mark Marquez, know that name. But other than that, like, I wouldn't be able to pluck these names out myself. I'd have it would be somebody else would say it and he'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of them." But me actually plucking names out, probably not many.
yeah, that's fair. I tried this morning. You know that video of Sebastian Vettel naming all the Formula One champions?
Yes.
I tried to see if I could do that, and I think I got to like the late 80s and got it mixed up. But it's it used to be, it used to be my thing. Did bikes? It used to be the that and rally, as I keep saying. But
I'm trying to
yeah,
think of any others and, um, Biaggi, I know that's her name, but I don't know.
Biaggi was a 250 champion. He didn't win MotoGP or 500s.
I have no idea why I know that name.
I don't know either, but I'm impressed.
And the kinda that's about
Do you
Mick
know
Doohan. I know
Mick
that
Doohan?
surname. Yeah, yeah, I know that
So
one.
Jack Doohan's dad.
And I think if you go back
Did you
into
know that?
is that Jack Doohan's dad, really?
Yeah,
I did not know that actually.
yeah, yeah,
And if you go back a bit, am I right in thinking John Surtees?
yeah, yeah.
Would he count? And that's kind of about it, I think. I don't think I know any
John
others.
Sur- John Surtees, is he the? I think he's the only guy ever to be F1 champion and for MotoGP champion
And that's why I
or
know it.
500
I
cc
know him
champion. Yeah,
from
that's
car
that.
racing. Yeah, and I know
Yeah,
that stat. And that's kind of about it. Like I know so little about bike racing that it's kind of a good thing that I should go and check it out really because I'm going in with a kind of fresh pair of eyes onto it. So I think I might try and watch some bike racing this year and see how I feel.
why not? It's great stuff. And you don't even have to watch MotoGP to have a good time. I often find the racing is closer and more exciting in these national series or, on the smaller, tighter tracks. That's why Assen is one of my favorite races of the year to watch because the circuit demands tight, close racing,
What I
you know?
should do is check out how to watch British Superbikes because I know they don't stream it on YouTube. So
It's
it's
TNT
is
in the
it
UK.
TNT?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess I'm googling how much a TNT subscription is just to see if that's worth watching.
I think
Um,
they do a video pass. Maybe they do a video pass. I'm not 100%.
well, Google will tell me that as we're discovering it.
Google will tell you.
Watch TNT Sports on Prime Video. Oh, well, if you can get it on Prime, then that's I don't know if Prime.
God,
Uh,
everything's everywhere, isn't it? It's just
yeah,
it's on Netflix, but it's also on ITV Plus, Netflix Premium Disney.com.
yeah, and I'm on the TNT website and it's like, see our TV and broadband packages. I don't want that. Add TV to your broadband package. I
Discovery
don't have that.
Plus. I don't know if you have Discovery Plus.
I don't
That's
have
like
any
this.
TV package. I got nothing.
Okay. How are you watching anything?
I watch a lot of motorsport on YouTube because so much of it is free. And then I use F1 TV for F1. And obviously, you shouldn't necessarily be able to do that in the UK, but there are
Do you
ways
know
and
what?
means.
I never figured out, I could never set that up. It just didn't work for me.
It did take me a long time to make it work. I wouldn't recommend trying it. I also wasted a bit of money trying to get it to work. So,
Yeah,
um,
I even found it was like if you get a subscription in Turkey, it's cheap, and
yeah,
then you VPN to Istanbul, but you log in and it doesn't. It honestly, I tried to use F1 TV.
I,
Um,
I think,
if
to be
only they
honest,
just let us use it, that would be nice.
now TV is probably decent enough for F1, and WEC's
Mhm.
got its own platform, which I was going to say it varies in quality, but it doesn't. It's just usually bad quality, is what it actually is. And the rest of the motorsport I watch tends to be on YouTube because it's all free on YouTube, and that's how I consume most of my motorsport. So I'm looking at this, and it says Discovery Plus could be £4 a month. I'm like, okay, well, that's reasonable actually. I might give that a go. Although I
Well, do you
just
know if
checked it, and now it's saying TNT Sports is £30 a month. So who knows?
yeah, I mean, I think what it is Discovery Plus might be £4 a month, but if you want live sport,
Yeah.
you're coughing up some more.
Yeah, it's literally 10 times the price to get the
Yeah,
live sport. Yeah,
yeah.
that tends to be the way it
But
goes,
if you
doesn't
do
it?
get TNT or Discovery, you also will get, this sounds like an ad, but it isn't. You will also get uh, WRC, MotoGP, Worlds, and British Superbikes.
WRC might be worth it. They've got WRC TV as well.
They've got Rally TV, yeah.
Is that any good?
It's good, yeah, and you get the European Rally Championships on that as well.
We definitely need to do the WRC for dummies because I don't think we've done that, have we?
No, that
Um,
is, as of recording, that is scheduled.
and we should definitely do what was the other one? NLS. But we'll do
Yeah,
that before the
WEC.
match. Yeah. Oh, WEC could be a good one as well. Kind of works that WEC was a little bit delayed because we can get it in before the new first race of the year.
Yeah, I mean, is there a series that you watch that I know nothing about and you can lead the seminar? I feel like you know more about endurance racing. That could be a fun one. Change the dynamic.
That could be. Um, I believe we've got an exciting potential secret guest for WEC as well, so that would throw that one up. Um,
Yes, we have.
NLS, I know a bit about that. IMSA could do. You could probably
IMSA.
bundle IMSA in with WEC depending on how it's going.
You
Uh,
interested in IndyCar?
I want to be,
Just
but I watch
personally
it and
or
I'm like,
professionally?
it's fine. Like I always want to watch it more often than I actually do. Lack of coverage is one of those problems, and that I need a Sky Sports package for it. Um, I, I used to be a huge IndyCar fan, certainly back in the 90s and early 2000s, but I've kind of dropped out of it a little bit. I was more of a kart fan than anything else. We could probably do an entire episode on the various GT3 series. It's like, and the entire episode is me just reading a list of where you can race a GT3 car in the
Yeah.
world. It's just bullet points for an hour.
Yeah. Well, go
Yeah,
through your app. If you search for GT, it's just, you know, all these
yeah,
different regionals and nationals and things like that.
yeah. Because you can race a GT3 in almost anything nowadays. An amateur
Mm.
series all the way up to WEC at Le Mans. So that's although that is an amateur class now. So there's loads of content we could do on this. It's great.
So for now, we'll leave the MotoGP stroke superbike stroke TT stroke sidecar for sickos episode here. I think next up we'll be doing WRC,
I think so. Yeah.
which we were meant to do before Kenya, but then I moved house rather selfishly, and
Yeah, but it's worked out because I watched a bit of Kenya and really liked it. So I'm kind of
how
into it a
good
little bit
it
now.
was such a good rally. It was such a good rally.
But also since then, they've announced Rally GB in Scotland, and I'm like, well, this is my
For
time.
Scotland.
Exactly. It's like, unfortunately, it's Aberdeen, and nobody apart from Aberdonians like Aberdeen. So, but I might have to go up to Aberdeen and stand in a forest at some point and watch
Yeah, I
some
will
WRC.
100% be there.
So yeah, it worked out well. The moving house delaying that episode has worked out
It did.
because
We
now I
have
can ask more
news.
questions.
Yeah. So we'll leave MotoGP or bikes for sickos. I don't know. We'll leave it there. Dave, how can people keep up to date with bikes and cars, etc.?
You can check out in the racing line. So MotoGP through to Moto3's in there, as well as Moto Rookies. World Superbikes is in there, British Superbikes, American Superbikes. There are various support packages. The Isleman TT, because that's got quite a complex timetable when the weekend comes around. So that's in there as well. And you can just check it out all in the racing line. I think there are now 219 series in there, timetables wise. We did make 220, and then TCR Australia has cancelled for the year. So we're back down to 219. So I'm going to have to go find something else to add just to bring it back up to that
It does
220.
get bigger every time we speak, though, so
It
that's
does.
good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not good for your admin, but
No, I was trying to automate some of that this week and it didn't go well. So we're back to manually doing everything. So that's fine. That's I would rather be
you've
doing that than a
accepted your
day
fate
job.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and pre-order the magazine if you want. Issue 3 is out in April.
I've already pre-ordered. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Dave is a true customer and a gentleman and a scholar and a customer.
That's what we'll go with. I should do
Yeah.
that pre-order 4 after issue 3 comes out. I should just do the pre-order of the next 4 and book
Well,
in 4 through to 7 or
yeah.
whatever.
You would have saved £5 if you'd have bought a subscription earlier
Oh, I'm
last
not
year.
caring
But
about saving money. I'm more caring about let's keep this going by ordering more.
well, yeah, fair. Well, yeah. So we'll leave that there.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Slack, 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 slack.